Sandra here from Creating Spain, and today's tutorial is in Scale 4 and I'm talking about texts. Now there are lots of things that you can do with text. You can obviously print it, okay, so basically what you see is what you're going to get. You can cut it out in card or paper. You can cut it out in coloured foils and things. You can actually, if you're very careful and you've been looking at my blogs, you can actually cut out text and make your own stamps out of plastic. I did a recent blog on that. I think it was done. It's on the 28th of July 2015, and that's a Tuesday. So it would have been the 26th. I think it was on Sunday that I posted a tutorial on that. You can do all sorts of things, but what sort of fonts do you want for what purpose? For today's purpose, I'm going to be talking about actually cutting them out, whether it be for a stamp or whether it be cutting it out of cards so you can raise it on your card and create some dimension, or whatever it is that you want to do with it when it's cut out, and whatever material that you want to cut it out in. So what do you need to look for? Well, it depends on what you want to do. If you're quite happy to place each individual letter on your item, then you don't have to worry about it being joined together. But if you're like me, I do not particularly enjoy taking each individual letter off a mat, applying some adhesive to each individual letter, lining up each individual letter. You get the picture, don't you? There are times when you need to do it and times when you do want to do it, but most of the time, believe me, you don't want to bother. You really, really don't. It is so time consuming to do that. The times when you can get away with that are if you're using vinyl, because what you would do is you would put a little box around your word. You would then leave everything on the mat until you weeded it. You would weed from the outside in, and then you would just weed out the bits you didn't want to use, and you would use some transfer tape or masking tape or whatever else it is that you choose to use to transfer your single letters all in one go to whatever it is that you wanted to apply them to. So with vinyl, yeah, not a problem. With everything else, you got a problem, because it is very time consuming. So you want to try and find some fonts which create really good joined up writing. Now I do have a list of a few fonts that do make decent joined up writing. Some take a little more work than others. Now I'm going to change this font, and I'm just going to use this box to do it. I'm going to go to the library and go to the font bit. In the library you have shapes, fonts and projects, and people often forget in shortcuts a lot that you have this font box, but it is quite handy. And I'm going to go up through my list, and it does take a little while to scroll through. My mouse actually has a very fast scroll, and sometimes I've set it to its normal speed. It's way too fast, so I've slowed it down today so I go past what I wanted to pick up. And the font that I am looking for at the moment, look at my notes, it's called Allura. It's going to be up here somewhere. Okay, we're nearly there. We're getting there. Okay, here we are. Here's Allura. Now, if you have your font selected, as long as you haven't altered it in any way, you can just click on another font and it'll change it. Now, look at that. Isn't that a lovely looking font? Now, I'm going to zoom in really close to this. Here we go. And I'm just going to switch this off. Now, my next tip involves the fact that this is black, and it looks as though it is all joined up and it's perfect. You think, yes, I'll cut that. Hold your horses for a minute. If I take the colour away from this, we can see a true picture of what we're actually going to get. And I'm going to zoom in still further so you can see more easily. Okay, that if I had cut that out as is, I have these cut lines here on the L, where the end of the E is, where the end of the H is. They're not actually welded together. They're overlapping, but they're not welded together. So from the point of view of this particular font, what I would need to do is to ungroup them and then go to Edit, select all, because that happens to be all I've got on my mats. That's the easy way of selecting it. Go to Path and go to Union. And then you can see I've got my letters exactly as I need to cut, and they're going to cut just fine. Not a problem at all. So do make sure, whatever you do make sure that you check that your letters are actually joined up. Because most of the time, even though the script looks as if it is joined up, most of the time it won't be. There will be individual letters overlapping, unless you've edited it before. It's going to be overlapping letters, and you will need to just weld it together, in which case you pick Union on this. I do wish actually it's called weld, because unionizing things doesn't sound right to me. Okay, so that is what you would do. So take the colour out. Now I have another tip for making sure that your letters cut nicely and cleanly. And that is go to the Path tool again and check the Simplify tab. And just see how many nodes you can get rid of without it looking any different to the naked eye. And we can go here from 114 to 65. And if I click OK, and that's done it, I'm going to click off of here and I'm going to select it again. If I'm happy with that result, if I don't think it's changed it too much, then I can cut it with fewer nodes, and that will increase your cutting speed. And in general, it just makes for a cleaner cut. Now if I undo that, we can now see what it's done. Now I prefer this without it being simplified, because it's a much smoother looking line. So in this particular case, no, I wouldn't. But I've had cases where there's been a font, and maybe it's been designed by someone who's not a font artist. I don't know. I don't buy fonts, I pick up free ones. And if I've got a font, I'll always check it when I do a word to check how many nodes are in it, because some of them have got thousands. You don't want that, you really don't. And if they've got thousands, the chances are you can cut them down quite considerably and still not have any difference in your end result. Okay, if you've got a few nodes to start with and you just start taking them out, you'll get a bigger change, as we noticed with this one. But check it first, just in case. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my normal fit to window mode. And I'm going to type another word, and I'm just going to go to thanks. Now you notice in this one I haven't put a capital in, and that's because I wanted to show you. And again, going to zoom in, and I'm going to select it, and I'm going to take the colour out. I don't know why it put grey in it particularly, but it did. Okay. And in this particular case, you can see that the first letter is overlapping with everything. So as long as I followed the steps of ungrouping and then clicking on the path and union, my word would come out in one piece. But if, for example, I choose, oops, wrong one. If I choose another type of text, let me see. Let's go for Apple Chancery, just see. Okay, this one is not joined up at all. But sometimes you get a font, and I'm just going to check on my favourites. I've got one called Blackjack, and I want to see. Here we go, Blackjack Regular. There we go. Now you can see the first letter is overlapping, but the last one, for example, isn't. So do watch it, not all of them overlap. And also, If I'm to go with the same font and put in a capital T on the start and then continue my letters, the capital letter is frequently not even that close to the first lowercase letter. Okay, so you need to check those things. Now, having said that, I do have amongst my favourites quite a few that I absolutely love and that are relatively easy to manipulate to get the kind of results that we want. And this is my favourites list. This is quite a long list. In fact, there should be another one above there, actually. There should be a Laura in my favourite list. Oh well, I'll have to add that one to it later. So we've looked at blackjack, dancing script. Oh, hang on. One of my favourites, I've got Calamity Jane. Let me just click on my selection here. Let's go here. Okay, now I'm going to go back in here. Yep, and go back up. Calamity Jane. There we go. I just love the look of this script. It's got a few nice little curly Q touches on the capital letters, and I think it's a fun one. It's quite a fine script, and you can, if you're good at weeding, you can get some pretty neat results with this one. I must admit, I could really do with a magnifying lamp in my craft room. Having reached middle age and a little bit over these days, I find it quite difficult, unless the light is very, very good, to do very complicated weeding. And sometimes it can be really difficult to see, particularly if you're cutting out a stamp, as I was the other day. I was cutting out these stamps and they were about the size of a fingernail and I was trying to weed them and the plastic's clear, colourless, and I'm trying to see these holes that I got to weed out. I need a lamp. Right, so that one is Calamity Jane. It isn't one necessarily that I would join up, but it's just a pretty script as far as I'm concerned. And for joining up, we have a dancing script. Champagne and Limousine is a nice one if you're doing a writing text. I wouldn't necessarily class it as one that you want to cut out. You can, but it's not one that's sort of like ready joined up for you. Chunk 5 Roman is good if you want something bulky and is easy to weed. That's quite good for people who want things in bigger print, if you're doing cards for people that are not going to be able to read the fine stuff so easily, shall we say. And Coventry Garden is again rather a pretty decorative one. I do like it. It takes a little more effort to actually do that one without manipulation if you want them joined up. But joined up one, the next one is dancing script. Okay, so that's what that one looks like. Now be wary, the loops are a little bit on the small side, so maybe a little difficult to weed. The next one on my list is Great Vibes. There we go. And this one is a little bit easier to weed because things like the A, it has a little gap. It's almost like a stencil one. So it has a little gap there. And Italiano is the next one, similar to Great Vibes. This one is almost done for you, even with the capital letters. It looks as though pretty much all you'd have to do is go to path and union. Although having said that, that N doesn't look like it's overlapping the K. So again, one to watch, but pretty easy to do. And the next one I've got is Nikoni. Okay, and that one's quite a nice one. It's decorative, but it's still got some nice big holes in it, which makes it a bit easier for weeding. Now let me just see what the letters that have got loops are like. So if I do a capital R, okay, an L, the L's not got a loop. If I do a lowercase l, that hasn't got a loop at all, so that's good. Let's go for a lowercase e, and that one looks pretty clear. And I'm just going to move this down out the way and get rid of this little lot here so we can see what's going on. Let me see if I do, what other letters we got? The K, a lowercase k is okay, no loop. Uppercase has got no loop either. Let's try letter B, uppercase. Oh, that's nice and easy to read. Lowercase b, yeah, simple enough. Okay, I like this one. I think this is going to be one of my favourite ones. So that is Nikoni, wasn't it? That was Nikoni, I believe. One slight problem is that because I've just selected it, it's now decided not to show me what it was that I had originally got in my favourites here. So if I do another letter, do a lowercase f, okay, that's not got a loop. So yeah, I think that one's pretty good for ease of cutting out as actual letters. Now I want to try to do another one, which is Sacramento. And here we go. Go down here, go for a capital A and a lowercase a. Now that again is quite good because it is pretty much a stencil type letter. Lowercase b, that has an open lower ball but a loop in the top, but that's fine. Uppercase b is nice big holes. The difficulty is where you have a relatively fine letter and a small hole as well, and that gets difficult to weed. So that one looks pretty good, Sacramento. And the last one I wanted to look at was Sophia. And here we go. And if I go for, what letters am I going to go for? I'll go for capital B. Okay, that's fine. Lowercase b, you know you've got two loops there, so that makes that slightly more difficult. Lowercase h, that has a loop on it. So we have loops on the top that are relatively small. Now, bearing in mind I've got this blown up quite considerably, if I go to the view and go to fit to window, and then I put this down to a size that I would possibly be writing. Now, if I look at this, what size is that? Let's just go down here. It's just under 2 centimetres wide by 1 centimetre high. Okay, and if I go to actual size, that is not the actual size that it's going to cut out. And I do have somewhere here, excuse me, I have a small ruler and I can measure what size I'm looking at on my screen to see whether it's actually smaller than that. Okay, the letters would actually be a little bit bigger than that. But basically that is pretty small to actually do your weeding. But it depends how good at weeding you are. But there are lots and lots of ways that this can be used. While we're on the subject of text, I will just show you, just with this junky bit here. And I'm going to go to the effects and I'm going to go to the wrapper, because this is a nice easy way of getting your text to curve without bothering with circles or anything else. You can just increase the top diameter and increase the bottom diameter if you want. It helps if I got it selected. There's that. Right, it should be selected. Okay. Right, okay. Actually, it helps if I click the right bit, doesn't it? And it helps if I'm sorry, I'm not awake this morning. I was up at about 5 o'clock this morning out of very little sleep due to the fact my cat was wailing outside the door because he was hungry. Okay, so you can do a bit of a curved action on that. You can change how it curves and so on. So it's an easy way of doing it without messing around without circles and stuff. And the other one that you might want to do for an effect is the wave. And that can cause a nice casual effect. Now you can do those sorts of things, and you can increase the amplitude as well, which is the sort of the height of it, if you like. Whee! You've got to make sure that you can still actually read it. So the cycles are bits which are quite good. But yeah, you can get some interesting effects. And yeah, if you want a casual look, sometimes that can be fun. Well, I hope that helped you a little in using your text. And go on to some of the free sites to get some more fonts if you don't have very many. If you have a load, go through the fonts that you like and use this button to add them to your favourites. And then you can immediately go to your favourite half a dozen fonts, or 50 odd fonts in my case probably, and find the ones that you want without going through about 300, 400 or whatever. I must admit I am a bit of a font junkie, but I'm trying to reform. Okay, thanks for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.